My name is Dr. Hannah Marshall. I'm one of the critical care specialists here at Dove Lewis, and I just wanted to give a little rundown on the recent talk about blue-green algae that we're dealing with in the Willamette River in Portland, Oregon right now. So blue-green algae is a little bit of a misnomer in that it's not actually a type of algae that is growing. It's a cyanobacteria is the original source of toxin for our pets. There are many thousands of types of the cyanobacteria that exist. However, there's a really small proportion of them that are actually toxic. So about 40 of over 2,000 species are going to be toxic for what we see growing in the water. This sort of bloom, basically as we refer it to, again, it's not a specific type of algae. It's called the blue-green algae based on the most common appearance. You'll usually see it as this fluorescent green change within the river. If you had been by the water at all in the last week, it was this really bright glowing green that you could see right around Ross Island area on the bridge and the island itself. It's something that grows in rivers, lakes, stagnant water. It can be in the ocean as well, and it's most commonly precipitated with hot, humid climates, lack of rain, so everything that we're dealing with in a really heavy, hot summer of Portland right now with our big heat wave. When we see these toxic blooms, or presumed toxic blooms, it's basically impossible to say if they are the actual toxic or non-toxic, more benign type of cyanobacteria just based on visual inspection alone. But it's important for us to visually be aware of these changes to the water, mostly because if it is the toxic type of bacteria that's present, it can be really highly fatal to our pet population. But the percentage of those that are actually toxic is going to be pretty low overall. The only way to really know the difference between the type of species or the toxicity levels of the bacteria is actually sending a water sample off to a specific lab. Nothing that we have access to directly through any of the veterinary hospitals, so not something that would be commonly tested, or we would have access to testing if you brought samples in per se to our clinic itself. When we have a potential blue algae exposure in a pet, there are two main types of toxic species where we're looking at for clinical signs. So the most common locations it's going to hit is either going to be the liver or the neurologic system. The signs onset is incredibly dramatic. So truth be told, when we are worried about this toxicity, more often than not, if they had a toxic exposure, the likelihood that the animal would be alive by the time they get to the hospital is incredibly low. These signs can come on within 5 to 20 minutes and can be incredibly quick, very acute, and very sudden, with death being the biggest concern. Most commonly, the neurologic signs you would see would be tremors, seizure activity, and then those rapid progressions. The liver signs, especially if they had a mild exposure, are a tiny bit delayed, so they could have a little GI upset, but usually within a 12-hour period they are actually in full liver failure. So again, it's something where if you are worried that your pet is exposed, if there's nothing really changing within that first 30 minutes to an hour, then the likelihood of them actually having a toxic exposure is incredibly low, but still good to be cognizant of, especially when we know it's in the region right now. The most important thing when we have word or concerns about the toxic algae blooms is essentially prevention. Avoidance is the way. Since treating this sort of disease is incredibly difficult with a true toxic exposure based on the timeline from onset of signs to getting them to the hospital, we say just stay away. If there is word about different areas in the water, or we are seeing that visual change with the really big green, and again other colors would be red, pink, but the really bright green is the biggest one that we see, then just don't go in the water. It's hard because it's hot, right? We all want to enjoy the summer and deal with the heat wave and get our little toes wet doing some paddling, but just because of the risks, keep your pets away. We can see the toxins persist in the water for a couple weeks after the bloom has died or gone, so it's usually pretty smart to just stay out of that area for a few weeks whenever we have notification of a bloom going on. Essentially, the only thing you could do at home in the short term if you're really concerned is give them a bath, so try and get any contaminants off the fur, but just watch for those really sudden neurologic changes especially as your biggest sign. But if it's something that's not changing right away, then the likelihood that they had a true toxic exposure is incredibly low.